So let's start with the basics. What are restrictive covenants and what power do they have over a property?
So restrictive covenants are essentially an agreement, a private agreement between individuals as to what can be done with a certain property. And that actually gets registered on title. So if you go and pull your title, what some people know as a deed, but it's a land title in Alberta, you can see what restrictions and what is registered, saying, yes, you can do this, no, you can't do that.
So when you say, property owners and agreement between people, who enters into one of these agreements?
It can really be anyone. So it could be me and my neighbor, or it could be a group of individuals within a neighborhood. So like you've stated, in groupings of neighborhoods, there are individuals coming collectively together, or homeowners associations who are collectively trying to get those residents to come together to make an agreement as to what individuals within that neighborhood can or can't do with their properties.
How complicated is it then to create a new restrictive covenant?
It can be very difficult. The number one aspect of it is making sure that everybody is consenting to it. New developments, it's very easy, and this is where we most commonly see restrictive covenants. When a piece of land is just becoming subdivided for the first time, that's when those developers will have those restrictive covenants on title. But for existing neighborhoods, you need everyone to consent that's going to have it registered on title.
So, a new community-wide covenant, if one were under, people were working on one dissenting homeowner in the area could sewer the whole thing?
It really can. That being said, for those that do consent, they can have it registered on all of their titles. So as the homeowner, I can consent to having something registered on my own. But if I don't consent, it can't be unilaterally forced on me if I already own that property.
Okay. So then explain this in a neighborhood where there are covenants, like you could have them kind of sprinkled or peppered all around if individual homeowners choose one thing or another?
Absolutely. So individuals can choose at any point as to what they want on their title or do not want on their title. And there are lots of restrictive covenants that already exist that have been in existence for decades. And so we saw that with the Banff Trail dispute that ended up in the courts. And ultimately, the courts did look at whether or not they could remove or keep restrictive covenants, and they just continue on over the passage of time. So yes, if you agree and your neighbors agree, but two doors down, they don't agree, they don't have to have it on their title, but you can.
Right. So we're talking about this in the context now of, neighbors and neighborhoods considering whether they want multifamily buildings in the neighborhood. So is there any way to, if there's a covenant on a house, to say, a restrictive covenant on a property, to say that house cannot be knocked down to put up a fourplex?
Absolutely. And so importantly, the courts have already looked at this issue in that Banff Trail location. And it actually went to the Court of Appeal, where the Court of Appeal said, if it does not conflict entirely with the zoning requirements that have been given by the city, then it can be upheld. If it completely contradicts it, then unfortunately it is going to be removed in the public interest. So in this situation, the zoning requirement said no single-family homes. So the requirement that you only have single-family homes was impossible. So those covenants were removed. In situations like this, where it says that they are permitted, you can then have a restrictive covenant said that although they're permitted in this neighborhood, you can't do it.
Oh, interesting. So, okay, I just want to clarify, like looking forward, could a new community under construction put a covenant that says no single-family homes can be replaced with multifamily housing?
Absolutely. So provided that there's no specific zoning requirements from the city that say that that is not allowed, then absolutely new developments can put those restrictive covenants on title to ensure that there are only single-family dwellings or however they would like to build. And this is very common with things like condominiums.
So where do you see this discussion on restrictive covenants going as more time passes, as the city obviously has, made a decision on zoning, and then neighborhoods, communities, blocks pairs of neighbors, whatever it might be, decide how to handle this?
So traditionally, it is a private discussion and a private agreement that has been upheld and very difficult to overturn. So you do have to make a court application to remove those restrictive covenants. That being said, I do see the progression, and the Howe's decision on that Banff Trail location leads to believe that future decisions regarding planning are going to be upheld as a public interest decision. So in the event at any point the City of Calgary implements any zoning requirements that specifically would cause conflict with a restrictive covenant, there's the potential that although they may work for right now, in the future they may be able to be removed.
Okay. So what motivate, I mean, what would you say then to a couple of neighbors that are trying to play defense on changes to city zoning?
The number one thing to remember is that if the current owners agree, they can then put these restrictive covenants on. It is a lengthy, protracted court process to get them removed. So that is the best bet at this moment, is to agree with your neighbors to have those restrictive covenants. Best case would be a homeowners association with the consent of all of the homeowners to do those blanket restrictive covenants on all of the properties in that neighborhood.
Interesting. And I'm sure you'd have homeowners saying, no, I want, you'd have a diversity of perspectives from homeowners, let's say, in terms of some saying, no, I want to be open to multifamily housing and bigger developments, denser developments.
Absolutely. There's two conflicting ideas on this. For some, they believe that, hey, we bought in this neighborhood because there's only single family dwellings. So if there are all of these row housings and some townhouses popping up, it diminishes the value of my property. On the other hand, individuals will say, it's actually going to diminish the value of the property if I cannot sell it to a person that's wanting to put a row housing or some townhouses in. So there really is conflicting views and two sides of that argument.
In come the lawyers. Thank you very much, Randy, for doing this.
Thank you very much.